the approval of the agenda, I'd just like to take an opportunity to welcome Inspector Nash to the group. He started, I think, officially yesterday with us. I've had the opportunity to chat with you a couple of times, and I appreciate your willingness to work with us in the interim, but we welcome you to Brant County. Obviously, you're a resident of Brant County, so that helps as well. Maybe just quickly, we'll introduce ourselves so that Inspector Nash can put a face to the name. Jennifer Haley. I live in St. George, and I'm a community appointee. Bailey next.
I'm the mayor, David Bailey, and I live in St. George. Welcome.
Morning, Inspector. My name is John Pierce. I'm County Counsel. I'm the council rep for the Police Services Board. Welcome. And just on a side note, Madam Chair, as I sent you that text there, I may be a flight risk this morning with work. If I need to pop off, my apologies.
Hopefully we'll make it work. Member Brown.
Morning, Inspector Nash. My name is Jim Brown. I live in Dundas. I am doing a development out in Brant County. Welcome. Glad to have you here.
And Member Verhey.
Good morning again. My name is Marty Verhey. I'm live in Harley, and I'm a provincial appointee.
And Nancy and Robin, did you want to introduce yourself?
I'd like to. Hi, I'm Robin Hewitt. I'm the staff representative on the board, and I was the general manager of corporate services, but I have just recently retired and I'm back just doing a one-year contract. So I'd like to chat with you. So I'll send you an email and see what we can set up. And welcome.
Welcome, Inspector Nash. I'm Nancy Davis. I'm recording secretary for the County of Brant.
Okay, Inspector Nash, I'm not sure if you want to say anything or offer any words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom. Good morning, everybody. So yeah, Inspector Nash, I do live in the county in Paris, actually, with my family, and I'm here in the interim. End date yet to be determined, but I will keep you informed and updated as far as that's concerned. I'll certainly have some more information next week at the meeting. I've been with the OPP for over 21 years. I did start in Burlington, worked in Brant. I've done a couple interim assignments as detachment commander elsewhere. Spent time in our specialty services, intelligence, tech crime, and most recently out of regional headquarters, which is where my home position is currently. I currently have the business and finance portfolio. Also been incident commander, SIU liaison, just recently completed critical incident command training. So somebody who's always on call, it seems, for our critical incidents. So that includes high risk warrants and hostage rescue taking situations. So that's kind of my background, and yeah, I'm happy to be here, and Andrew's getting me up to speed. So of course I've shared my cell phone number. I'm always available by phone. If anything comes up, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. We look forward to working with you. So without further ado, we'll have a motion to approve the agenda, please. It was previously circulated. Councillor Pierce and Member Brown, thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. So right now we just have to do the declaration of pecuniary interests. Any to declare? Seeing none, thank you very much. So Robin, did you want to lead us through your report that you were prepared, so then we can open up for some discussion and then we can go from there?
Sure, I can do that. So I'm sure you've all read the report and are familiar with the fact that the province has passed the Comprehensive Ontario Police Services Act, Bill 68. And with that is the development of new OPP detachment boards as opposed to Section 10 Police Services Board. So it will be up to council to decide both the number of boards and the composition of the boards. What we are doing here today is I've written this report, which will be similar to the report that goes to council, but we're seeking input from the Police Services Board, which can be then, I'll include it in my report, but this committee can also prepare a motion with recommendation to council with regarding their input and what they would like to see in the new OPP detachment board. So in terms of number of boards, I had indicated in the report that it really made sense to continue with just one board. We don't have, we don't provide any policing to any neighboring First Nations, and we're a single tier municipality, so it makes sense to continue with just one board. And really, I believe the composition of the board will be really what is discussed today and what would be recommended to be put forward. So with the new legislation, it indicates that 20% of the board has to be provincial appointment and 20% has to be local appointment. There's no limit on the size of the board. And on the last page, I provided some examples of if you made adjustments to the number of board members, how that would impact the legislated requirement of 20% for both the community appointees and the provincial appointees. So I'm not sure how council's going to look at this, but they may look at it as an opportunity to have more council members on the Police Services Board, or they may not. But whatever your recommendation is, we'll present to them. So that's, I think, the point of discussion right now.
Thanks, Robin. And just to clarify, the reason why we're meeting today versus our regular meeting schedule next week, which we still have, is the timelines for Robin to get our feedback into the committee and then council and then to the province by June 7th, I believe it is, required us to, basically today was kind of the day where we needed to get together. So that's really why we're doing this one agenda item today for everybody's background. So let's open up the floor for some discussion in terms of the options that Robin's presented. I know we've talked in the past about our comfort for status quo in terms of the composition and how we function. Is there anybody any thoughts with any of the options that Robin's presented? Or in addition to the options, obviously there's the considerations about maintaining one board versus additional boards, which personally I agree with being a single tier municipality. That seems to make the most sense. We don't need to add more bureaucracy to the situation. And then Robin's clarified that we don't have responsibilities with First Nations because we don't provide services to any of those communities that butt up against Brant County. So we don't have any additional requirements that way. So let's open up the floor for discussion. Does anybody have any thoughts that they want to kick off with? Mayor Bailey?
Well, I think there's arguments for a couple of ways to go. First of all, the way it is now is quite fine. It's working out. It has worked out in the past for a very long time. I've been on the board a very long time in every seat that's available. So I do know that it does work. There is an argument to have one less provincial appointment and one more county either appointment or councillor, just because of knowing the logistics of what they're doing and what they're serving. And when governments change, appointees change, time frames become gaps, and there's a little bit of confusion sometimes. With that being said, that is an argument, but also there's an argument to leave it just the way it is now too. So, but I would like to see us talk about 2 provincial appointments, just because as governments change, so do the types of appointments change. It's not something I pulled out of my hat or dreamt. It's something that I've witnessed for over 10 years. So it's just something that can happen when governments change. So I would rather, as a council or as people that reside in the county, know a little bit more about our appointments, because we do not pick our appointments just sort of helter skelter. We do a lot of thinking about, we have very good names. Police Services is probably the committee that gets the most names when we start committees. I think we had 57 or something at one point. So Chair Haley, you're very good standards. You had some very good competition. And I think if we had to pick two from those people, we would be well served as a board also.
So Mayor Bailey, you're suggesting 2 community appointees rather than 2 official appointees potentially?
I'm saying there's an argument for that, yes.
Okay, yeah. Question maybe, Mayor Bailey, you can answer is in some of the proposals that Robin's outlined, it seems that there's, with the new regulations, there's not the requirement that the mayor or the mayor's designate has to be part of this, that it could be just, how do you feel about, because you've done all the roles, how do you feel about that, whether the mayor or should be, or whether it should just be an additional council member?
I think the mayor should always sit on the Police Services Board. It's like that throughout the whole province. It would be an exception for the mayor not to sit on our Police Services Board. If for whatever reason the mayor doesn't want to, I mean, that's a different story, but it's something that should be offered to the mayor and it should be his to turn down.
Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Through you. We've had some good discussions on this, and I would agree the composition of the board as it is right now, it works very well. We've got some good people on here with some good open minds and good forward thinking, so that always helps. But I do agree that the sense of having more community input to it, so having an extra delegate from the community, I don't think would hurt in any way, shape, or form. I think it would be an advantage. I still believe we should have the 2 provincial delegations as well, because if we were to add a community appointee, that would mean that in essence there's 2 community appointees, there's 2 provincial appointees, and for lack of better words, there's 2 council appointees. I also agree that it should be the mayor, if that is what they choose, or if they don't choose, then another delegate from council. But that would, if we were to add a community, that would be 2 representing council, 2 representing the community, and 2 representing the province. Again, don't get me wrong, we work well with the 5, but I don't think it would hurt at all. And as the mayor says, I'll use that analogy, there's an argument to be had with potentially adding a community representation for it for a number of reasons. And we're lucky in this sense that we do have 2 provincial appointees that Marty lives in the county. Jim doesn't necessarily live in the county, but he's very active in the county. So they're 2 provincial appointees that know what the heartbeat of the county is, and adding another community representative that knows what the heartbeat, as I say, that's only going to strengthen the board. I'm good either way, whatever the board goes with the majority, that's fine, but that's the only possible change I think I would make on that. Thank you.
Member Brown?
Through you, Madam Chair, I concur with both board members before me. I think it's very important that we have good representation from the community. When I'm looking at the various options that are there, I think that the board should be comprised so that it's more community appointees than it is council members, or otherwise it should just be a council issue. I'm not hearing that anybody else is looking to have more council members weighted. So I like the composition of basically the status quo is working, but to John's point, I think having an extra community rep would be well received. It can give us some more flexibility and further insight. My only comment about that is if we go to a board of 6, then you create a scenario where you could have tied votes, and maybe one of the council members can can clarify this. Is there an opportunity there if you did have something like that, so we wouldn't have tie votes, to have the chair break a tie? That would be my only concern, is we don't want to have you normally go for odd numbers so you don't have a stalemate. And if we can put something in there that would allow us to keep moving forward so we don't have ties, I'm very much for that. Option 2 basically covers that with the exception of it precludes the mayor. And I think that maybe if option 2 was modified, where it would be mayor and or council member, so that they can decide how they want to do it at that point. That should be a council decision, not a board decision.
Member Verhey?
Yeah, I agree with all three, I guess, before me. Just to speaking to John's point earlier, I think it's important to have good community representation. I was just going to state that as provincial appointees, I mean, we do live in the community, and it kind of works out well where we come from geographic different areas of the community as well. I think we do have our ears low to the ground, so I'm not opposed to another community representative. I just don't think it needs to be based on the fact that we aren't getting the community involvement. I'm not trying to only speak about myself, but all of us from the community, literally everybody on this call is, I think, very well connected in the community and hearing things out and talking about police services quite regularly. So not opposed to adding another quote unquote community representative. I just personally, from my experience, and maybe this is too much on the business side, but I think it's bigger groups of people, bigger meetings, bigger boards is not always necessarily better, in my opinion. That's just my personal thoughts.
I agree with you, Marty. Bigger is not always better. And just something to consider, just thought of this when you were talking about Councillor Pierce's suggestion about additional community member. The community members appointees follow the same timelines as the municipal elections. So council and mayor, obviously, and then the community appointees are done at the same time as council's installed, whereas the provincial appointees are on a different timeline. Then I think you guys are a year less right now, currently with your appointments. So potentially having an additional community member would allow some continuity while we wait for those provincial. We know that provincial appointments aren't always necessarily quick. They can be fast or they can be really not fast. So there might be an opportunity there for some continuity to allow the board to carry on while we wait for those provincial appointments, something to consider. Mayor Bailey, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that at the health unit right now, we have holes in the health unit, again, because of provincial appointments. And a health unit right now during a pandemic is a very crucial thing. We need to have a full board, and it's very troubling. But the other thing I was going to say about this board is, because I've been municipally appointed and provincially appointed twice, when you're halfway done something or you're doing something and then your time runs out, you're gone. Where it's nice to have the option of coming back like I did when I wasn't appointed by the county anymore. So I asked to be reappointed by the province, and they saw what I was doing and what stage I was at, and it made sense to do that. So I think it allows people to stay in position if they're doing good work. And I also, just before you, Jennifer, we had a very, very good chair in John Burrows. And it was terrible to see that he had no place to go when he was so good at what he did and was in the middle of doing some very good things for the county, representing the Police Services Board. And I always thought it was unfortunate that he just sort of got snuffed out like a matchstick and there was no place for him to go. So maybe with the different variations of people being appointed, that he could have come in under some other, under the wing of some other appointment or something. It's just hard to watch good people go down just because the contract ran out or his time ran out. It's not so good to watch.
Any other thoughts or suggestions? In terms of how we communicate this to council, I believe in the report, it did say that we could pass a motion for input and forward it to council. And I believe that would be something similar to the preamble that Robin has in the recommendations on page 3, whereas, and then all the stuff, and then we could add in our piece at the end if that's something that you folks and Councillor Pierce and Mayor Bailey, tell me if that is helpful to lay it out that in that regard for council's consideration, or is it another format that would be better suited?
Either or, through you, Madam Chair. I think either or would work. I think just something coming from, if we want to follow what Robin has in there, that's great. But I think just something coming from the Police Services Board to suggest that we've had conversations and discussions about it, and this is our recommendation, so to speak.
So
Again,
it could be a memo format as well then.
Yeah. Again, not that not that council will or have to take that for what it is, or sorry, take that what it's going to be, but I can honestly say that it would definitely be taken into consideration by council, the fact that we as a Police Services Board have given the front row seat view of it. That's kind of my thoughts. So it didn't really answer your question, but I think either form is sufficient. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that if it came to council saying that we supported it, they wouldn't have any reason to not think that we knew what was best for the Police Services Board at this point.
Member Verhey, did you want to get in there?
Related, but more to your first comments, Madam Chair, about how to report back to council or however that process has to go. What are the thoughts of having, at the beginning there, we were talking about having more council representation. Like I said, I'm not opposed to another community person, but I feel that's, provincial or municipal appointment, I don't know, is kind of indifferent to me in my from my perspective, because we all live and function a lot in the community. So maybe there's opportunity for more municipal government involvement. I don't know what my peers say to that, as well as councillor and the mayor. I don't know what their thoughts are there too. Like, if there needs to be more involvement, is it better coming from those who are already so heavily invested in municipal affairs? It's just a thought, because then we could look at that as an option.
Member Brown?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Further to Member Verhey, I think having the 2 members on council is sufficient. I don't think that we should grow it too much. Otherwise, it does become cumbersome and more awkward, not as efficient. If we're moving something forward that we're going to recommend, then I'm just going to throw something for discussion or comment. But I'm looking at the 4 options here, and I'm thinking a modified option 2, where you take the top 2 lines and put the mayor or council member in there. And that would give us, I think what I'm hearing everybody say, that they want the additional community appointee, which I think would be great. You maintain the 2 provincial appointees and the 2 positions from council, which would weight the input from the community, which should benefit council by having the various viewpoints and perspectives put back through our council members who are on the Police Services Board. But is that what a modified option 2? Is there something that somebody else sees differently?
Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, I see that differently, just because whenever there's a disaster, a pandemic, you always see the mayor standing with the head of the Police Services Board. They stand as a unit. They stand representing 2 different bodies of people, both elected. But I think a good member of the Police Services Board, whether it be appointed by the province or whether it be appointed by council, would be that same member. So if you were doing a good job, Mr. Brown, on the Police Services Board, there's a very good chance you'd be reappointed by council, especially if you were in the middle of doing something or chairing something or being vice chair of a different zone or something. There would be, if there was no reason to give some inconsistencies to our board and unstrengthen our board, we wouldn't do it. I mean, if we felt you were politically sitting there because politically you're sitting there and that your time runs out, you would probably not be appointed by a board that didn't find you actively participating or contributing to the board and the betterment of the county of Brant. But if you were doing a good job, I can't imagine why it wouldn't be the same board, whether you're appointed by the premier or whether you're appointed by us. Just because we would want this board to be strong. And this board, to me, doesn't show any colors. There's no political colors showing, I don't believe, at this board and or at council very often. So, and that's a very good thing. But it is the policy of, as I said, the change in provincial government to bring their own people. But if if their own people are the right people, I would assume as the mayor and Mr. Pierce as a councillor, we would still do the right thing. We would never balk at something just because we could if we knew the right person was already in place, or I wouldn't anyway. But I don't think it's right to have the mayor report back to council as the mayor, because there is an assumed weight. We're not talking about waistlines. We're talking about the weight of the mayor's comments to a council. And that shouldn't be. I shouldn't have to report back to my council from this board. It should be the second member of council, which is Councillor Pierce or whoever Councillor Pierce is next time, because the mayor shouldn't be seen as an influence on anything that's brought forward by the Police Services Board. That's how I feel about it.
Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, a lot of good points, Mr. Mayor, and I agree with the sense that you were using the analogy with Member Brown there, and I look at that through you, Madam Chair. We were talking about how we take this back to council. We're going to take something to council as a police services board, and I can truly say that as far as council is concerned, I'm sure I can speak for everybody. We feel the police services board is doing a very good job. So with that in context of what the mayor, I believe, was trying to say about Member Brown, it's the fact that if we have a group of members on any board, and those members are doing a good job, they're active in it, they're involved, and they're within the community. I totally agree. Whether it's a provincial appointee, we don't have any say in that, but definitely from a community appointee, I could absolutely agree with the fact of them being brought back in. As far as the adding another member of council, again, I think I can speak for council in the fact that as long as council is getting the information required from the Police Services Board, I don't think there's an issue. I agree totally the fact that it should not be the mayor bringing it back from any board, let alone the Police Services Board, because it is true. The mayor is the mayor. Yes, he's a member of this committee, but he is the mayor, and that shouldn't be, things shouldn't be brought back from him just on the perception of potentially, I'm not saying it's going to be, but potentially, hey, you know what, the mayor said this, so we have to do that. So I agree with the fact it should be somebody else other than the mayor. And I guess my last point on it, and Member Brown alluded to it earlier with the 6 members, I feel that the makeup of a committee, yes, you could get yourself into a situation of a tied vote, but I also believe strongly in the fact that a committee of like-minded people, the chances of that happening are very slim. And I can honestly say that for the vast majority of my time on this board, we are very like-minded people. Obviously, we want the best for the community. And I think in a smaller board like this, I don't think the chances of having that, in that situation, a 3-3 tie are very likely to happen. If in fact it did happen, then I agree, as in most boards, it would come back to the chair to make the final decision. So I talked in a few circles there, but the long and short of it is, I believe the representation from council should absolutely be the mayor and 1 councillor. I believe it should be that councillor taking the information back to council. And as far as I said before, at the end of the day, the reports will come back to council for approval at their council meeting. So the rest of council does have the opportunity to discuss anything that's gone on in police services anyway. So I would go back to what I said originally. I would be more than favor of adding the extra community appointee, and I think that would just strengthen the board. Thank you.
So right now, just to summarize, we're looking at a hybrid of option 2 with obviously not 2 council members, but 1 being the mayor or his designate, a member of council, 2 community appointees, 2 provincial appointees. That's currently what is kind of what I'm hearing is before we get to member Verhey, the hybrid of option 2. Okay, member Verhey.
In full agreement with the last comments there. If that is truly the case, why don't we just stay status quo?
And just have 1 community appointee versus 2.
I mean, I think all of us were just saying that if it's truly in good shape the way it is, and we've got the community representation, regardless of provincial appointee or otherwise community appointee, we've got good representation, we got active engagement from council. I believe the 3 of us are as municipal and provincial appointees are quite engaged, and we're hearing from Councillor Pierce that council is happy with how things are going now from a police services board perspective. Why don't we just leave it as is?
So just to offer a contrary, just for the sake of discussion, and I'm not advocating necessarily, but just thought in my head is if we leave a status quo 5, to mitigate against the timelines it takes for provincial appointees, a consideration could also be that we leave it as just switch the 2 around. So it's 2 community appointees, 1 provincial appointee, and we'd still meet our guidelines of representation. So then the municipality is still able to appoint in a timely fashion. You have 1 provincial, 2 community versus the other way around, and then we're not so last time around when our provincial government changed from liberal to conservative, that's when our previous chair was in limbo for so long. And obviously, if the government changes again, it could change their desire for who they would want to appoint. But if it was municipally appointed, then it falls in line with the municipal calendar, and then the county still has a say at who's best for their county. I'm just offering that as an alternative consideration, but still leaving it at 5. Member Brown, you wanted to jump in, I think.
Yeah, I'm good with the status quo, but I have heard from several others that there is a want or desire to have more community appointees as opposed to the provincial appointees. So if that's what they're looking for, that's why I was suggesting either adding the 1, or I think that you need to flip it. And a point to add to your point, Madam Chair, is in February and March, I believe Marty and I are finished, which means that leaves the 3 of you there until the next election or whenever they get around to making more provincial appointees. So having a municipal appointee, I think, could be more workable for the community at large. So if that was the case, then I would either be looking at the status quo by flipping it to 1 provincial with 2 community, or staying with the community or option 2 where we have 2 and 2. But I do see the benefit of having an additional community appointee in here.
Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, and I think status quo is fine the way it is right now, just because of the players that are in place. I've seen it before when everyone didn't get along. The next mayor may not be a big supporter of the OPP, might be lobbying for their own police force as we get a bigger population. You don't know what's going to happen. The next 2 provincial appointments might be completely on their own or not know what's going on for a long period of time and not be valuable to the committee. Having the second appointee by the municipality does give us complete control over crossovers and timelines disappearing and things like that. Now, doesn't your 2 appointments, so don't they stagger? Didn't one of you get appointed for 2 years and one for 3 years, or the other way around? You don't both come off at the same time, do you?
I think they're a month apart, Mayor Bailey, in 2021 or 2020. No, when, Jim?
Unless, Marty, you've been advised otherwise, it was for the 3 years. So I missed the first meeting because I was out of the country when we were appointed. So I didn't get appointed till March, and I believe Member Verhey was appointed in February. And I think that's when our terms end.
February
Okay.
2022.
Correct.
Okay, because they usually stagger at 3 years, 2 years. You could have 2 and 1 or whatever they are. But my terms were never the same amount of years. But that might all change now. I don't know, and it doesn't really matter because you'll both be gone. But that would give us more control over never having to be in such a hurry of reappointing someone. But you know, the other thing we could do too is we could just be very aware of what's going on. And if we want to keep our board strong, this is the point then, if you know that you're coming off the board soon, is to approach maybe with a letter of recommendation from this board to your MPP saying, you know, this is critical, this is and get in front of all of this, because other boards for the police services haven't always worked together. There's always been maybe an agenda that we're glad that this one's leaving, or we're happy that this one might be coming. So it's never always been like this. So maybe with the proper letters of recommendation from the mayor and from the chair of police services, reminding the MPP that these appointments are going to be coming up, and giving the province a little bit of time, because right now the province has obviously got other things on their mind than worrying about our appointments in the county of Brant, and apparently our health unit also. But they are busy. They're a busy government right now, getting things done quickly, or as quickly as they can. So maybe if we want to keep the board strong like this, maybe we have to go to different measures to make sure that we don't let things run out on us.
Nancy, could you just as an action item follow up, just I know you probably got it recorded somewhere, but just double check the term lengths for both Member Brown and Member Verhey, just so that we're all on the same page.
Yes, I do have actually the terms for both of them. They expire February 14th of 2022.
For both?
Yes.
Okay. There we go. So now we know, which will be 10 months ahead of the municipal election and my term and council's term.
Yeah.
So there could be some lag time, as Mayor Bailey said, or there could not be, depending on how we advocate or work within that system. So what's the appetite then for folks switching the two community appointees, 2 community appointees, 1 provincial appointee, and still leaving it at 5, and with the mayor and member of council as 1 each, or leaving it completely as status quo as it is now with the 2 provincial appointees, 1 community appointee, the mayor and council? Or I think we had the 6, the additional community members, so 2, 2, and 1 and 1 for 6. So where are we landing? Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Madam Chair. And again, I'll just allude to what this board is all about. After, you know, some very good discussion here and some ideas brought up, I'm kind of leaning towards the idea of potentially flipping the provincial and the community, you know, having the 2 community and the 1 provincial. And if in fact we do go that way, what I'm going to suggest is in the recommendation to council, we don't just say, you know, here's our recommendation, because the whole vibe of changing that is the fact that, you know, as was stated, come February, we're down 2 members, right? So if we were to put to the council, you know, here's our thoughts, 2 community members, 1 provincial member, for the reason of, you know, almost a full complement of members throughout the life of the board for that term. So again, I appreciate the conversation we've had here, as I always do, and it's kind of changing my thinking to the fact of, you know, let's leave it at 5, but swip to the 2 community and 1 provincial.
Yeah.
What's everybody's thoughts on that? Member Brown?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Robin. Are there in the new requirements percentages for provincial appointees? Currently, there's 20%. Does that change?
So through you, Madam Chair, the new legislative requirements are 20% community appointees and 20% provincial appointees. And those are the only legislative requirements.
That's required minimum, Robin, just to clarify?
Correct.
So then that, we would still meet the provincial minimums under the new legislation. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
So through you, Madam Chair, on the examples of the options, you'll see one column that says % actual. So if you're looking at like a modified option 1, you'll see the 2 community appointees, if it was at 2, would be 40%, where legislated is 20, which is indicated in the next column. And then provincial appointees at 1, the % actual is 20%, which is equal to the legislated requirement.
Thanks, Robin. Any other discussion? Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, I would be good with that, but I am so okay with the way it is now too. But I would be, I think, a little bit better with the other one. And again, it's worked out well for us here because we have good representation from all over the county. But that doesn't happen all the time either. That, you know, appointments happen and you might get 4 people from Paris and you might get 4 people from Burford. Whatever, like right now, it's worked out well for us. And maybe that's half the magic of this board is the personalities are okay. And where people are living, it's a good cross section of the county. So anything can happen. That you know, I've seen decisions be made on the status quo in a snapshot of time as right now, and we're all really happy with it. But it can go very wrong very quickly, and just always know that. So whether it stays status quo with I'll vote for, or whether we do the 1 appointment from the province, 2 from the community, I'll vote for it. So it's whatever you see fit, Madam Chair, because you're in the chair.
Yeah. Well, we need a motion to consider what we want to vote on. Is there anybody that's, are we ready to present a motion, or do we need to have some additional discussion here for clarification? Any other points, Member Verhey?
I can just add one comment. Again, I think we're all somewhat agreeing and going to be flexible on what we'd like to have. So I guess we'll have to just get to a motion and have a little vote about it. But I made this comment not that long ago. I think it was in relation to this discussion, that once this COVID stuff passes, then we can play a more active role as community members in the community policing groups that were formulated in the different. Right. So as community or provincial appointees, we can jump in and be more engaged. And I think that is going to be important. So, I mean, adding another municipal appointee could be good for that very reason, where we've got a bunch of these community policing groups put together where we as board members can play a more active role in that. We started talking about that back when we drafted these little groups, and I know COVID's thrown a wrench in it, but that's something that I would look forward to.
Yeah, to echo everybody's sentiments, I think we're a very lucky group of people who like-minded, focused on the community, wanting to do good for our people, wanting to work collaboratively with Inspector Nash and his team for the betterment of the county. Like, we're all here for the right reasons, and that's we've gelled together for those good reasons, and each bringing in our perspectives. But we can't control the future either. So that's what Mayor Bailey's pointed out, is that the future appointees, the future council, those are all undetermined. So we have to think beyond just ourselves personally and think about the composition in terms of future boards as well, because this chance to change or maintain it's not like this is going to come up all the time on our agendas either. So I think we have to kind of remove the people and think about the positions and what's best for the county as well. Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Madam Chair. And just with what you said there, you know, thinking about it outside the box, if committee is good with it, I would like to ask Inspector Nash if he's had any dealings with other single tier municipality police services boards and what their makeups are. I'm not sure if he's had dealings with them or not, but I'd be interested to hear it from the OPP side.
We'll put you on the spot, Inspector Nash.
Sorry about that, sir.
Through you, Madam Chair, I have had some experience with boards, and I mean, it does vary. I find that, you know, the boards, depending on how they gel, as the mayor kind of alluded to, really the makeup depends on what the preference is at the time. I can't say there's more community versus provincial appointees. It does vary. So it's a very interesting conversation here for sure. And of course, we'll work with whatever that decision is, and certainly look forward to it. Not an exact answer to what you're looking for, but again, it would depend on the particular municipality.
Thanks, Inspector Nash. One thing I'm reminded of is that we, in our deliberations here, we are fortunate to be talking about such a small scope of change, because we are already single tier municipality. Inspector Darling let us know about, I think she said she had several police services boards within her detachment because of the way their municipal government is structured with townships and whatnot. So I can't even imagine trying to consolidate several police services boards into one or two, or however that goes, and having the inspector having to work with each of those individual boards. So we are lucky that we are not talking about major changes here, thank goodness. So I'm just conscious of the time. It's 10:48 on my computer. I know everybody's busy. Is there any other discussion, or are we able to move towards some decision making? And whether that's Nancy and I preparing some communications to council, or whether the board here prefers a more formal motion to be drafted, you can let us know. I do appreciate the opportunity for Robin and Michael Bradley to ask us to provide input. I do appreciate that we've been asked to provide input, and I feel that's a great move forward in terms of our relationship with staff and with council. And I really I really feel it's important that we've been invited to say something, so I feel it's important that we do speak up. And I appreciate council's support of Police Service Board. We've done a lot of work here as a group to bring us to that point. So I think it's a great opportunity. Member Verhey, you wanted to add something?
No, I was just going to propose that we put forward a motion to add on an additional municipal appointee to the Police Services Board.
So for this, a total of 6, Marty, or leaving it at 5?
Bump it up to 6.
So just so I can clarify, it's still maintaining the mayor as 1, mayor or their designate as 1, a member of council as 1, community appointee is 2, and provincial appointee is 2, for a total of 6 people.
Correct.
Is that your motion? Okay. So we need a seconder for that, Mayor Bailey.
I'll second it, and then I'm going to ask Nancy whether we have the money in the budget to pay for that second.
Additional person.
Yes.
And I think a comment too is that my understanding, and Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, this composition wouldn't come into effect until potentially after the next municipal election. So sometime late 2022, early 2023, by the time all this gets into play, but Robin can confirm.
So through you, Madam Chair, they anticipate it will be sometime in 2022. They haven't given a specific month, but yes, in 2022.
Yep.
So then, Mayor Bailey, your question about the budget, is that in relation to having the additional person?
No, it'll be fine then, and then it'll become a budget line in the next, so I'm not worried about the money anymore. And I seconded it to get it on the table for discussion.
Okay. Any other points of consideration? I'm similar to Mayor Bailey. I mean, I know we all vote. I could go for the other version of switching the community appointees and the provincial appointees and remaining at 5. I do worry about the process of reappointments or appointments in general, but I see that in my own sector as well, professionally, with with the Minister of Agriculture and his appointments and the time it takes to get those done. So I do know that that's a struggle. But that's just the process. That's just the name of the game. So any other thoughts before we call the question here? Okay. Oh, sorry, Mayor Bailey.
No, I was just going to say, if you call the question and it gets defeated, you can bring your own motion forward.
Yep. We'll try again. So let's call the question. All those in favor of the motion to increase to 6, increase to 6 with the additional person being a community appointee. So 2 community appointees, 2 provincial appointees, 1 member of council, and the mayor or their designate. So for a total of 6 people. All those in favor of that proposal? I guess it passed. All those against? Yeah, okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't vote. I can go either way. It passes with 6. And any other comments before we wrap up? Good discussion, excellent discussion. Councillor Pierce?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Again, when we do whatever is sent to council, let's just ensure that the rationale behind the decision is in there. And to me, it's twofold. It's adding an extra member of the community to the board, as well as helping balance out the political appointee, or sorry, the provincial appointees being done in essence, 6-8 months early.
Okay, so do you wish that Nancy and I will prepare that memo then for council, or do you want it structured in the formal whereas motion? Member Verhey?
I would just, I don't know if, sorry, if that was pointed at Councillor Pierce, but my opinion would just be to have you guys draft a memo to council. Simple and easy, but.
Councillor Pierce, that'll suffice?
Yep.
Perfect. Mayor Bailey?
I don't know whether we can do this or not, but could we vote on second option and give council an opportunity to pick one or the other? Or do we have to come with a clear-cut answer?
So you're saying this is our preferred option, but here's another one for consideration?
Yes. Robin?
Thoughts? Robin, is that?
So through you, Madam Chair, so you could do that if you wanted, but again, we just need to make sure that we're clear that we know that this is council's, it's up to council. And like, if we say, give them 2 options, they can pick something completely different if they want.
Yeah.
It's just so it's clear that it's not, they don't get to choose from what the Police Services Board recommends, that they will just take that into consideration. So.
Good point, Robin. They can still pick whichever version, and that might not be any of the ones we recommended.
That's correct.
To Mayor Bailey's point, I guess if I'm reading your mind, Mayor Bailey, I'm guessing you're thinking that you're giving them some insight into our thoughts that, okay, this is our preferred, but here's another option to consider. Because if they wanted to leave it status quo, then do they just want to play around with the community piece? I'm not sure what you're thinking there.
Well, a lot of people don't like big boards, so I was just going to give them the option of we leave it status quo and we just change the 2 provincial out to 2 community people and 1 provincial appointment and leave it the size that it is. So I don't want them to see that we're trying to get bigger because we're growing as a community, population's growing. I don't want them to think that the 6 people that we're going to suggest that we have on the next board be an indication of our population, because that's not why we did it. That we never talked about that at all. We just talked about what was the best thing for us to maintain quorum at all parts of the year. So, my motion would have been, or can still be, if Robin thinks it has any merit, would be that we leave it alone, just changing the two ways that we appoint members.
Councilor Pierce?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Kind of along that way of thinking, I'm wondering if we could, and I'm not sure if it's kind of too late because we voted on the one, but I agree with the aspect of, you know, we've discussed it as a board. We're sending this to council. We were gonna put a little caveat on there, the rationale for adding the extra community member. Now, if we go with what the mayor is suggesting here and suggest that, you know, or, you know, leave it as status quo, but flip the community and provincial appointees, I think that's all kind of, it's all telling the same story in the fact that, and again, this is no disrespect to the two provincial appointees we have right now, because they are engaged in the community. But I think what it's doing is it's sending the message that we want community representation on this board. So whether it's by adding an extra or by adding an extra to the 6, or just by flipping it, I think that's the message that will come across. And yeah, as you know, as Robin alluded to, sure, council could say, yep, thanks a lot, whatever, we're going to do our own thing. But I think the message, if we were to go this direction, back to that council would get from this is the fact that, you know what, what we're, and again, I'm putting my counselor hat on here, what we're getting from this message from the Police Services Board is that, you know, things are going well, but we want to add an additional community member for 2 reasons. One, the fact that it's just that, it's somebody that's invested in the community. And 2, as we spoke to earlier, it allows us to have the full complement longer within the term. So I wouldn't be opposed to adding the 2 if we can do that.
I'll defer to the experts on municipal governance, but is this a friendly amendment, or is this how does this work in terms of recording motions and decision making, if that was what we were going to pursue? Any thoughts, Mayor Bailey?
Well, we have voted on the first one, so it can't be an amendment of any kind because that's complete. But it could be a second option for council, which would cover a couple of things. It would keep it the same size, and the difference would just be the makeup of the board. So it is 2 certain things for them to choose between. If they want to pick 1 or 2, they might go completely into the weeds. You don't know what council is going to do. It might go into the weeds, and they might decide they want somebody with 3 heads to be the chair. You don't know what's going to come out of a council meeting ever. So, but they do, you know, people like to have a choice between A and B. No one likes to be told what to do. This is perfect timing during the pandemic. That's why everyone is so close to the edge of sometimes it's because they're being told what to do, and it's not a time to be telling people what to do. Choice is a really great thing to do if you can do it. So that's all I have to say about that.
So I guess we need to decide then if we want to put a second motion forward to add to the first one as a second option for council's consideration. I'm thinking that if we did that the first motion would still be the preferred option. And if a second motion was to come forward, then that would be an alternative suggestion for consideration. What's everybody's thoughts? Member Brown?
Are we actually going to convolute and confuse this by doing that? We've made a motion. It's being supported. My point, I'm a provincial appointee, and I see the benefit of ensuring that the board can function properly by having more timely appointments rather than having lag time where you have somebody who's not able to participate in case they get appointed again, which happened the last time. In any event, my 2 points are there is a definite desire by those on staff or council or in the community to have more community input. So having another position appointed by the community, I think, is a good thing. Functionally, I think it's a very good thing, because if it's 4 people, if we go add 1 person, you always have 4 that are there, so you can still have a quorum. Whereas if we stay at the status quo and you don't have the extra community person, you all have to be there or you don't have a quorum. So I think it provides a little bit of flexibility. But as far as putting two motions before council, I don't know that that makes us look good. I think that the points are there, and I think that Councillor Pierce is able to say that these were the salient points that we've discussed and we put forward. And I'm sure that you're still going to be presented with 3 or 4 options from staff, as we're seeing on the board here, and council should be able to derive their input between the recommendation that we already have voted on and I'm sure that he can clearly articulate what our concerns or points were on this. I don't know that throwing 2 motions at council is what we should be doing.
Mayor Bailey?
I agree with you. We're done.
Okay, so seeing and hearing that there's no additional motions, the first one will stand. Thank you, everybody. So we have direction. Nancy and I will prepare a communications to council outlining our suggestions and all the salient points and reasonings behind which we arrived at this recommendation. And then Nancy and Robin, you'll let us know what the timelines are for getting that done so that can be prepared and submitted. Is there anything else anybody wants to review here before we call this a day? We have our regular police services board meeting next Tuesday, 9 a.m., not 10 a.m. Today was a special time. And we'll get to know Inspector Nash a little bit better than next week as well, with our regular agenda and reporting and whatnot. Anything else? If not, then I will ask for an adjournment. Councillor Pierce, member